Yezid Sayigh is a visiting scholar at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. He was also an advisor, negotiator, and policy planner in the Palestinian delegation to the peace talks with Israel from 1991 to 2002. He joins us live now from London. So some major news just in terms of what's been happening to the leadership of both Hamas and Hezbollah in the past few weeks. You've got both groups now without top voices, top commanders. Sinwar obviously being killed this week. Nasrallah, who led Hezbollah since 1992, also assassinated as well. What does that sort of leadership vacuum mean for the strategy of both groups going forward, do you think, Yezid?
Well, I think there are big differences between the two, despite the fairly superficial resemblance of having top leaders assassinated. Hezbollah, I think, has taken by far the bigger blow with the loss of Hassan Nasrallah, both in terms of what he represented for his party and for his community, the Shia Muslim community in Lebanon, but more importantly, perhaps, the special position he occupied in relations with Iran and as part of Iranian relationships with sympathetic militias and organizations in Yemen, in Iraq, and Syria. Yahya Sinwar represented nothing of that stature for Iran. And even in terms of Hamas history, he's, the 20th, maybe the 30th senior leader of Hamas that Israel has assassinated over the past quarter of a century. So this doesn't end Hamas, but the problems are also different in a different manner. Hamas has, in my view, and I know this won't be popular among Palestinian listeners, that Hamas pretty much signed its death warrant on the 7th of October, regardless of the rights and wrongs of anything. But it put itself in a position where it's now struggling to survive, and it probably will in some form. But it exists almost entirely in territories occupied by Israel since 1967, in which Israel has overwhelming military security, economic, financial, technological, and administrative control, whereas Hezbollah operates in what, at least to some level, remains a sovereign state of Lebanon and has a lot of resources and communities, etc., that it can still draw on. So Hezbollah, in that sense, has better chances of survival in the long term, although it'll have to make very significant changes to how it approaches things if it's to maintain its domestic political weight, let alone its ability to confront Israel in the future.
Can I ask you, Yezid, to respond to what we just heard from President Biden, saying that despite the death of Yahya Sinwar, he still believes that a ceasefire in Gaza right now would be more difficult to attain than a ceasefire in Lebanon. Just given that we've now seen, as I noted, Israel call up yet another reserve brigade into that fighting. What do you make of that? And do you agree with him? Is this an opportunity perhaps for a pause or a ceasefire in the fighting in southern Lebanon?
I'm sort of struggling hard not to laugh, frankly. If President Biden had wanted a ceasefire anywhere, he would have had it. This whole year, we've seen time after time the president coming out in public, or Secretary of State Tony Blinken coming out in public, saying that they have got Israeli approval of a ceasefire deal, only to have Netanyahu turn around and demolish that. And there's no question that the United States administration has the leverage. It's provided Israel with $18 billion worth of military assistance in the past year. So if President Biden actually wants a ceasefire, a pause, a truce, whatever you want to call it, anywhere, he can have it and get it. I think that, but the other thing that's interesting about his remarks is the distinction he's made between Gaza and Lebanon. I think in Lebanon, this is where Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu feels he's on the up. He's pushing his ratings in domestic opinion polls in Israel higher. With the war in Lebanon, that's very popular across the political divide within Israel. And so he's not going to let go of that momentum, partly because he has higher aims or broader aims in terms of what he wants vis-a-vis Iran eventually. But I think also because he feels the wind is behind him in his sails right now. He's not going to stop. At the same time, the Biden administration appears to have, in effect, joined Netanyahu's approach, which is this is a great opportunity to fundamentally weaken Hezbollah and fundamentally weaken the Iranian position. And so I don't think this administration intends to hold Netanyahu back. So I would read his statement rather differently. As for Gaza, I'll just slip in quickly that I think it's clear Netanyahu has never wanted a ceasefire in Gaza. Much of his domestic political calculations now ride on maintaining a war. The war in Gaza is no longer so popular in Israel. People are pretty demoralized that the Israeli army has still not achieved total victory. And in that sense, Netanyahu needs a different war front. And I think Biden, in this respect, is not spending any last political capital he has in the last remaining weeks of his presidency trying to differ with Netanyahu on this assessment.
And it's interesting what you said about, Biden doesn't have any intention of, holding Netanyahu back, and that this idea if Biden actually wanted a ceasefire anywhere, he would be able to get one. The U.S., of course, does have a lot of leverage over Israel. But your thoughts now on the U.S. sending that letter demanding that Israel improve the humanitarian situation in Gaza, otherwise threatening to restrict access to arms to Israel? I mean, obviously, they've made these sorts of threats in the past, but is it different this time, do you think?
It's different and, frankly, seeming far less persuasive. I mean, demanding the entry of aid after a whole month for a population that is already experiencing extreme food shortages makes no sense whatsoever from a humanitarian perspective, nor from any other. And it's also curious that 30 days happened conveniently to end after the US presidential election. In other words, at a time when this administration, I suspect, will have no real leverage or interest in pursuing the matter with the Israeli government. So this seems much more for diplomatic consumption. I just fail to see how we can take this seriously.
Yeah, the political calendar does come to mind when you think of the timing of this letter being sent just a little over 2.5 weeks away from a U.S. election. Yezid Sayigh, thank you so much for joining us, visiting scholar at the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And our coverage